We have just finished studying ecological principles, and now we're going to be taking a look at how humans impact the natural environment and how we affect those ecological principles. The first thing we'll be looking at is how humans and their population growth have an overarching impact on the environment. Because sadly, humans are the basic cause of all of the environmental problems that we are experiencing today. So the more people there are, the more problems there are. Human population started to really grow exponentially during the time of the agricultural revolution. At the time of the agricultural revolution, people moved from being nomadic and moving around to settling into communities. And when they settled into communities and started to grow their own food, they needed more people so that they could divide up the jobs. This is called division of labor. So this was a positive change for humans. It gave them a more reliable food supply. Rather than having to hunt and gather their food, they could count on it being there. But this does support a larger population. So this was the first case in which human population really started to begin to explode. But the growth really took off around the time of the Industrial Revolution. If you look at the slide, you will see a J-curve, and you've learned what a J-curve shows. It shows growth over a period of time and exponential growth in a short period of time. And you can see on the graph that at the time of the Industrial Revolution, near the year 1900, there was a rapid increase in the growth of the human population. So you have a place in your manual to sketch a graph of human population growth. So you need to do that now, showing it as a J-curve and indicating the time at which the Industrial Revolution would have occurred. The Industrial Revolution is when people started to manufacture a lot of material goods, and there were many technological advancements. These technological advancements were a positive impact when it came to human life and quality of life, because it led to improvements in medicine and sanitation. It allowed people to live longer and healthier lives. It allowed babies to survive after they were born. So this then led to that increased birth rate and decreased death rate that ultimately resulted in this exponential population growth. So with industrialization, that then leads to urbanization. Urbanization is the development of cities, and this development of cities leads to economic development and social development, both of which influence the growth of human populations. Sometimes economic development ultimately leads to a case where human population growth starts to level off, but it takes a long time for it to reach that point. So with increased humans, we have increased pollution. This would include air pollution, water pollution, and land pollution. All of these pollution problems relate back to overpopulation of people, because these pollutants are produced as waste products from our human activities, particularly things like our burning fossil fuels for energy, our mining so that we can manufacture material goods, and then using those consumer goods and disposing of them, creating a lot of waste. More humans also means less natural resources, particularly the non-renewable resources, which are only available in limited amounts. We're not getting any more of them. So these non-renewable resources would include things like fossil fuels. You can see here an oil rig mining for oil, minerals, which are used to manufacture all sorts of things, and metals, which are used in the manufacture of many of the material goods that we rely on in our day-to-day lives. Also, with increased people, we have increased land use. We need more space to put all of these people, put all of their homes, put more roads, put more businesses, put more hospitals and schools, etc. So when we have to have this development, that leads to loss of habitat for other species besides humans. People who study human population growth are called demographers. Demography is the study of human populations. And so some of this information is collected when periodically different countries do census. And a census is a sort of a survey where they collect information about the people who are living in that particular country. So with the census data, they can construct a type of graph called a histogram. And a histogram is useful in trying to collect information about future population growth trends. So we need to take a look at these three examples of histograms, and we need to take a very careful look at these histograms. So I want you to look first of all at the one on the left, which is Kenya's histogram, and you'll notice that it is divided into a male side and a female side. If you look down at the x-axis of the graph, you will see that it extends out from the middle, going from 0 in the middle in increments of 2, and it's measured in percent on either side of the middle. So each line of the graph, each bar of the graph, represents a different age group or age cohort, and it represents the percentage of the population that is in that age cohort. So look at the graph very carefully. You will see that for the age cohort of 0 to 4 years, this is the bar at the bottom, there are approximately 9% of the population that are female in that age group. And there are closer to 10% of the population that are male in that age group. So total is approximately 19% of Kenya's population that is age 0 to 4. That percentage are babies. What this means for Kenya is with a lot of babies, they're going to grow up. Those babies are going to eventually reach reproductive age. They are going to have babies of their own, and the population is going to continue to grow. So whenever you see a histogram that looks very much like a pyramid or a triangle with a wide base like Kenya's, this indicates a rapidly growing population. Now look at the one for the United States in the middle. You can see that in general terms, it looks much more straight up and down than Kenya's histogram looks. Looking down at the bottom, you can see that approximately 4% of the United States population is male from age 0 to 4, and approximately 4% is female, age 0 to 4. So only 8% of our country's population is age 0 to 4. And there are a lot more older people in our country as well, indicating that we have better health care and ability to support these older people and maintain their quality of life so that they live longer. So a pyramid that doesn't really look like a pyramid, instead it looks more straight up and down, indicates a stable population or a population that is growing slowly. Now look at the histogram on the right. The histogram on the right shows Germany, and you can see that the base of that histogram is narrower than the middle. So this indicates there are fewer young people in the country than there are older people in the country. So this means that over time, that country's population is actually shrinking because those older people are ultimately going to die, and there will be fewer younger people to replace them. So when you have a histogram where there is a narrower base than there is a middle, that indicates a shrinking population, a decreasing population. So knowing that human population growth is really the root cause of all of the environmental problems we are experiencing in the world today, what is the solution to that? Well, the simplest answer is called ZPG, or zero population growth. What this would mean is that the number of births that occur would equal the number of deaths that occur. And that way our population would stabilize and stop getting larger. There are approximately 7 billion people in the world today. With zero population growth, that number would not shrink, it would just stay stable. So there are a few ways that this could be accomplished. In some countries, the population growth has been so extreme that they have taken measures as a nation to limit the number of births per family. This is done in China. You've probably heard of this before. Many people think that they actually kill babies in China, and that's not true. What they do in China is they offer tax incentives for having fewer children. In the United States, we have tax incentives for having more children. You actually get more money back from the government the more children you have, and it's opposite in China. Basically, the Chinese government makes it very difficult in terms of economics to have more than one child. Most people can't afford it. So they've taken it on themselves to make their population more stable. This is invasive and unaccepted to many places around the world. So instead of that approach, where it's a required approach, we could do things like make birth control and family planning more available. In places like sub-Saharan Africa, countries such as Kenya, they don't have many options when it comes to birth control or family planning. And having that more available might mean that fewer children would be born. Sometimes these children are born when they don't necessarily intend to have more children. And then finally, just simply educating people and our political leaders about the consequences of human population growth, that's another approach that could help to level off human population growth. So regardless of whether or not our human population globally continues to grow or whether it stabilizes, we need to take a look at using our natural resources in a more wise and careful way. This is called conservation, the wise and careful use of resources through environmental stewardship. Stewardship means taking care of what we've been given. In the United States, we could do a much better job of this. We have only 20% of the world's population, but we use more than 50% of the world's natural resources. In the United States, we use a lot of fossil fuels. We use a lot of minerals. We use a lot of metals. We use a lot of water. We use a lot of all of Earth's natural resources, and we could do a much better job at conservation without decreasing our quality of life. Nobody wants us to go back to the way things used to be. Nobody wants us to live in grass huts or stop driving. Nobody wants anyone to give up their electronics. Nobody wants anyone to have to give up the types of food that they eat. We can maintain our quality of life, but we can use our resources more wisely through the 3 R's. We live in a developed country. The United States is a developed country, so is Canada, so is Australia. These people who live in developed countries can do a better job of the 3 R's. We can reduce what we use. This would mean buying, for example, products that have less packaging. When you buy products that have a lot of packaging, you're paying money just to throw that packaging away. So buying things in bulk is one way that we can reduce the amount of trash that we produce and reduce the amount of resources that had to be used in order to produce that packaging. We can also reuse products, use things more than once. So for example, you can buy a refillable water bottle rather than buying the ones that you fill up, that you use only once and then throw away. You can bring your lunch in a Tupperware or a Rubbermaid container instead of a plastic bag or something that has to be thrown away. You can buy a razor that you use multiple times and just replace the blade rather than the disposable razors that you throw away after one use. There are very simple things that can be done. We can also recycle more. Recycling in the United States has become much more convenient. In many cases, the recycling container is just next to the trash container. It requires almost no effort on your part to do this. Recycling means returning products to be reprocessed so that new materials don't have to be mined for and manufactured. We can take the raw material and we can make it into something new. So for example, old tires, the United States produces tons of tires each year that have been used and discarded. Those can be shredded up and used to make track surfaces. Butler's track is made with old tires and it feels a little bit spongy if you've ever walked on it, and that's why. So reducing, reusing, and recycling are simple strategies to help us conserve our natural resources and get better at the problems that we cause. This would then lead to a condition called sustainability. Sustainability is ensuring the availability of these natural resources and a stable environment for future generation. We want to leave things for our children and their children. We don't want to destroy our planet while we are alive. We want to leave it in good condition for them.